okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Do we need to do a thing to like sync up the audios and stuff?
It would help, yeah. Just
Right.
a big clap and start.
Little like 3, 2, 1 team. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think he's got it now. Yeah.
We can honestly just start like where basically from the time you had record. But anyways, this is Shawn Getty for people that don't know.
Hi.
Yeah. Do you want to give a little like elevator pitch as to who you are? I guess if anyone's watching that doesn't know you, which I highly doubt.
Well, somebody, I'm sure. Just real estate team lead. Was a solo agent for a few years. Did some pretty good numbers. Now we're top 50 team globally and
Globally?
Yeah, at XP, yeah,
Whoa.
for XP. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's the biggest independent brokerage in the world. So like we're in the mix of the biggest teams in the world for sure. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's
we're just at
crazy.
the bottom of the mix.
So to get from solo agent just starting out to top 50 globally and EXP,
Yeah.
how long did that take? Like how long have you been licensed for?
4 years. So I'm about to be in my 5th year. Yeah.
That's it, eh?
Pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick. So yeah, I started, 2019 is when I started. And so like 2020 would have been my first year, right? And yeah, like I had no clue what I was doing. I completely clueless.
Then the world shut down.
The world shut down after, actually. So, because I started March 2019, so March 2020 was my year,
Yeah.
and that's when the world shut down, right? So, and what's crazy is, so like, oh man, how long of a story can we tell here?
Honestly, like we've got an hour and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
we'll keep it shorter.
yeah.
So, when I first started, it took me about 4 months to do my first deal because again, I had no clue. And at the time, EXP was actually not that great of a brokerage. It is now. The concept was amazing.
Yeah. So did you start at EXP?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So in Alberta, there was only maybe 50 agents and only one mentor that was available to me. Not a great experience with that mentor at all. Ooh. And yeah, no names, right? But yeah, so it wasn't that good. So for example, I started in March and like I told them I was broke. I had no money whatsoever. And I'm like, I need to sell a house today, like right now today. I'm like, so whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to get up out of my chair and I'm going to go do that thing. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing you should do is a pumpkin drive. I'm like, pumpkin drive.
I've never heard of that either.
I'm like, it's March. I'm like, so you want me to hand out pumpkins in October? And I'm like, I just told you I'm broke. Where do I procure these pumpkins from? Do I steal them? Do I grow them? Like, what do you want me to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so that idea is not going to work. I'm like, okay, so what's the next thing? And they're like, well, you can hang out at coffee shops in communities where you want to work and talk to people coming and going for coffee. I'm like I can't even afford a coffee. That's how broke I was. And I'm like, I'm just supposed to loiter and bug people that are coming for coffee and see if they want to do real estate. I'm like, this doesn't make no sense to me. I'm like, so I'm out, right? Like I'm not doing this mentorship. And then, so I went to the broker and I told him, listen, I'm not being a mentor, or I'm not being mentored by this person and you got nobody else, so I'm not doing it. And he's like, well, you don't have a choice because we have to pay them 20% of our first 3 deals to help us through. And I'm like, well, I'm not paying this person to literally give me bad advice and hurt my business. So I'm not paying them. So I don't know what you want to do here. He's like, well, you have no choice. You have to go with the mentor. It's how the brokerage works at the time. I'm like, I definitely have a choice. I'm like, I quit. I'm just not doing it. I'll just go somewhere else and work somewhere else, right? He's like, okay, no. You could stay and just, you're on your own then, right? I'm like, okay, I'm fine to be on my own.
Did anyone else have an issue with this guy too? As far as mentoring?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
To be honest, I have no idea. So like for me, I'm like so in my own lane my whole life. So if you're not in my lane, I have no idea what you're doing, who you're talking to, what's going on. So maybe, right? I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And like, I can't express how important that is to people, especially this day and age. It's funny. I was actually talking so many circles. I was talking to a realtor the other day and they said that they haven't done a deal. They're a big production realtor. They haven't done a deal in 3 months because they're so focused and so annoyed by all the realtors that are out there doing these TikTok videos that they're frustrated in their own business and their own industry. And it's mind blocking them from doing deals. That is so far outside of staying in your own lane that it crushed your business.
Yeah.
Imagine. And they're not even worried about what they're doing as far as production. Oh, they're doing better than me. They're selling more than me. They're just annoyed that everybody's pointing and dancing at stuff. And that's how they're trying to get business. That it's frustrated to the level that they can't go and produce their own. Right.
Yeah.
So for me, that's why I stay in my own lane. I have no idea what's going on outside of that. And yeah, so maybe they were a bad mentor to other people, but I wouldn't know. So anyways, at EXP, we have an online campus. And now I know how powerful it is. Back then I didn't, right? I was so naive and so like ignorant to so many things. But I logged on to the campus and there's 60 hours of live training there a week. So I log on, it's like SimCity. It's on an island and there's a campus and you go to different rooms and there's training. And there's a front desk girl and she's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, good, I'm brand new. I heard there's training here. I'm like, I don't know how this works, but where do I go to get training? And she's like, oh, you're brand new. That's so exciting. She's like, you got to take the boats for a ride. I'm like, boats? She's like, over there. I'm like, this is so stupid, right? I'm like,
Yeah. A
I'm
virtual boat?
I'm like, I'm logging into a video game to go learn, and they told me to go take boats for a ride. I need to sell houses. I don't care about boats,
Yeah.
right?
I'm not trying to play Grand Theft Auto here.
This is the worst, right? So I logged out of that. So now we're a virtual brokerage. So I've got no mentorship, no brokerage to go talk to people at, and no training. And I have no clue how to sell houses. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I literally just Googled, how do I sell houses? And I just started watching YouTube and watching Google. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is how I'm going to learn, right? So I started going through it. And I started to see the activities that I was supposed to do, but I didn't like what I saw and how to do it. Because one thing for me, even though I was dead broke, I had no money, I needed to do deals right then and there, I was always going to be of value. That was always my thing, right? And a lot of stuff I saw was kind of like sly, if that makes sense, right?
What sly? What do you mean by that?
Like tricking people into doing deals.
Like a used
Right.
car salesman or something?
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
right? Where they're like, say this so they can't say anything back to you and you're going to get the deal locked in and, you know, send them a listing presentation or send them a listing package before you go there so that when you come, you just tell them to sign like it's ready to go. And I'm like, this is like, how is that of service? How is that of value?
Yeah.
Like people should be excited to work with you. Like, where do I sign? How do I get this started? Like that should be the vibe, right? So a lot of the stuff that I saw, I didn't like, but I saw the activities. So I saw like, okay, I'm supposed to knock doors, supposed to do open houses. I'm supposed to do warm calls, supposed to do cold calls. I'm like, okay, I got it. And back then, nobody was really doing social media in an impactful way. Like there was always the Ryan Serhants and stuff like that, but there was no real local realtors doing social media. And any that were really trying were kind of more getting made fun of than anything, if that made sense, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how I started. And I'm like, okay, I see the activities I'm supposed to do. Let me just go do them. So I went out and I went door knocking and I had no clue what to do first time.
Or what to say.
Right. So I knock on the door, right? Knock on the door. Someone answers and he probably saw the surprise on my face. I'm like, oh shit. Right.
Yeah.
He's like, hello? I'm like, hello? He's like, can I help you? I'm like, do you want to sell your house? Right. And that was literally the first door that I knocked and I had no clue where to go, but I knew I had to do it. So I kept doing it. And like my minimum set would be 50 doors in a day. That'd be my absolute bare minimum. And I would go up to 300 doors in a day. And it's funny when I say that because some people try to call me out and be like, there's no way you knock 300 doors a day.
How long does that take?
8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
Right? You're out there all day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so 8 to 10 hours, you're out knocking doors. And because I had nothing else to do, I had no other customers. I wasn't buying and selling with anybody. So like, what am I going to do? Just sit around and do nothing?
Yeah. And
Right.
plus it's probably like either like really hot or really cold and you're
Yeah.
hungry and you're walking all day.
Well, I started in March, so it was like pretty comfortable temperatures, right?
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would go into the summer, I would knock doors. And again, social media, I was just like documenting the stuff I was doing. And then that documentation ended up being my whole business because people saw how hard I was working and how much I was willing to do for my customers and how far I was willing to go to find off-market deals or generate interest in business and listings and all that kind of stuff. So then all of a sudden my DMs just started blowing up with people that wanted to do deals with me. And then I'm like, oh, there's something to this. And then I started really focusing on social media and then that took off. And then so, yeah, my first year, 44 deals. To answer your question in a long form way, my first year, 44 deals. My second year, 103 deals. My third year, 186 deals. And then really started focusing on teams. And then we finished top 50 team in Canada. And then we finished top 50 team globally. And, you know, it's exciting stuff. And I'm like, okay, there's something to this team stuff. I had no clue what I was doing. I was like sprinting with my eyes closed as I normally do. And because I got in the top 50 and because I was at these speaking events, I got connected with some amazing people like Ibrahim Hussein, Jen Jones, Veronica Figueroa, I always say her name wrong, Jeff and Phil down in Arizona, and then now Justin Haver. And these guys were like so gracious with the information that they gave. It made me realize how stupid that I was, like how bad
Yeah.
I was doing this. So then I revamped everything. I spent like pretty much from Q2 till now. So Q2, Q3, and Q4, just on systems, just on back end, just on onboarding, just on staff. And then now we started hiring like crazy. And yeah, we'll see if we're a top 10 team this year. So,
Maybe top 1. You never know.
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess everyone knows that part of the path to success is, littered with a few failures, right? So
More than that.
yeah, that's just maybe an understatement in a sense, but
And the problem is, sorry, finish your sentence.
yeah. Well, I guess I was just stating as like a general thing, not just you, but what I was saying is, so I've heard through the grapevine that you're, I think, on the 3rd iteration of running a team.
Eighth.
Okay. So that was a little bit of an understatement too.
Yeah.
So I guess, what have you learned through those first 7 iterations to make this one so great? Because I know, like, I'm friends with Amon, and he's like super pumped to be on your team. He's saying great things.
That's awesome.
I don't know how long it's maybe been like a week or something. I don't know, but
Yeah, but he's been on my radar for like 3 years.
yeah,
And I've always just helped him from afar with whatever I could, right? Because we weren't connected. We weren't at the same brokerage. We weren't on the same things. But anytime that I seen him doing something, because he's such a good dude, right?
yeah,
So anytime I seen him doing something and I know that he could have done it a bit better or got a better result out of doing it a different way, I'd reach out and be like, hey man, maybe try like doing it like this. And then he would reach out enough times where he would ask for stuff, which is nice because that's a humble person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to help him with that. So like we've been on each other's radar for 3 years, I think now. And then he's been in Alpha Agents, which is our downline, for 3 or 4 months. And then the team for a week. No, 2 weeks. But he probably told you how drastic the difference is from the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He keeps talking about accountability, and to be honest, I haven't gone like super deep into it with him.
Yeah.
But I just know, just based on like the energy that he was giving off, that he was, he was pretty pumped, right?
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
obviously the energy that he's portraying, obviously, like, is a reflection of what's going on here, right? It kind of bleeds into the culture, right? So what is going on here? Like,
Yeah.
that makes it so great.
Totally. Lots.
Yeah.
It's funny about culture. So, so like to answer like your question before, and then I'll get to that one. But again, something else I learned for Ibrahim Hussein, who runs a big team out of Toronto, and probably have given me, not even probably, if I had not met him and had the conversations I had with him, there's no way I'd be at this part of my path and on this journey where I'm at all. Just open my eyes to so many things. But one of the things that he talked about is that this is a business. You're an operator. And I was thinking it as a team lead, two totally different things. So he would ask, he'd be like, okay, like let's say you want to buy a restaurant. Let's say you want to buy a Subway or a business or whatever. How much does that cost? And like at the time, I don't know, it was $200,000. I know now it's more. But I'm like, I don't know, $200,000. And he's like, okay, so you want to start a team, which is a business, and you don't think you need to invest at least $200,000 or $300,000? You don't think you need that capital injection for staff, for support, for systems, for all of that, for leads? And I'm like, no, right? I'm like, I wasn't doing any of that stuff, right? I had one transaction coordinator, that's it. And I paid them per deal. So I had nobody on salary. I had nobody on bonuses. I had none of that stuff. And he's like, you don't have a business. I'm like, shit, I don't, right? So that really changed my mindset, because I thought I knew about business because I'd been a manager in other places before. I'd ran businesses before, but I never owned a business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So looking at it, I'm like, okay. Because like, for example, I was a store manager for the Brick, and I was responsible for payroll, but that wasn't my money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are two very different things.
Correct.
That was my P&L that I owned, that they would say, you own this P&L, right?
And you're responsible for.
But I didn't own it.
Yeah.
Right? Now that payroll is mine. That comes out of my bank account, right?
Yeah.
And I was afraid to make that move. And what happens is that fear, and he says the same thing, that fear is what stopped me from being great and taking the next level. So I'm like, okay, I got to buy into this then. And then, so yeah, I hired my first operations manager, which is Callie, who has completely changed everything, like everything. And then through her, brought on an ISA team, brought on a VA team, brought on a MIN team. And now we have a ton of staff, and now we're actually able to support the agents. So like my two biggest flop teams, I had 27 agents at one time that all left the team and then all left the brokerage. So they literally hated me, which sucks because I wanted the best for them, but I didn't have the skill sets and I didn't have the strategies to support them the way they need to be supported.
Yeah.
So they all left, right? As they should have, right? My intentions were in the right place, but my skill sets weren't there. Then when I started the two versions after that team, I grew that one to 12 people, thinking I'm going to go slower this time. I'm going to do more training this time. I'm going to do whatever, right? And each time I thought I was doing enough, not even enough. I thought I was doing great, but I wasn't. And like one of the biggest factors was I was always selling. I was still needing commission, my own personal commission, to float the team because the team wasn't making enough money.
Yeah, to bankroll the team, basically, right?
Yeah. So I was paying for the team.
Yeah.
Right? And what happened is I just never had enough surplus where I could roll the team for long enough until the deals started coming in. And that's one thing, again, Abraham taught me. He's like, if you don't got the cash, you can't do the business. I'm like, okay. So that's why when I started this one, I'm like, let me get that cash up. Let me make sure I'm in a good financial position so that I can stop selling. And if I can stop selling, I can pour all of my efforts and energy into the people. And on top of that, we hear this all the time, but it's really hard to do. Lean into your skills and hire your weaknesses, right? Super easy saying, very difficult to execute. So especially when you're running a business, because you want to control everything. You want to be the person that's the go-to. You want to make sure that everything's done the way that you want it, even though it might not be the right way. And that's what I was doing. And when I brought on Callie, that was my first salaried employee. When I brought on her, she took over all the back end, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, she used to ask me questions, right? Can I do this? Can I do that? I said, don't ask me anything. This is yours. If anything, you teach me because I don't know how to do this, right? So yeah, so she would just run with that. And all of a sudden that took all of the stuff that drained my battery off my plate.
Yeah.
And this is something that's so important that a lot of people don't understand is we actually can all work all day. There's no problem with that. You can do a 16-hour day. You can do an 18-hour day. You can do them forever. But you can't do those days when stuff is draining your battery and not filling your battery. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right? This is what people understand. Like, how do you work so much? I'm like, it's fucking easy. I like it. Right?
Yeah.
It's not hard. But when you're doing stuff that drains you, you're dead at the end of the day. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you come home with a dead battery, now you leach that onto the person that's at home, and then you start wrecking your family life. And then all of a sudden now you start to fuck up your work life because you're bitter, and that's just a cycle that goes. Right? So like leaning into your strengths is so important. So anyway, so Callie loves the back end. Like she's obsessed with it, right? And like every time that she gets to do anything on that side, which is all day, she gets giddy. She's like fired up about it.
You could lock her in a closet and she could make Monday.com sheets.
Loves it.
Forever.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we're getting that side of the business at a high level from somebody that gets energized from it. So she just keeps duplicating what she's already doing.
Yeah.
Right? Which is awesome. And all of a sudden that frees up all my time to do the stuff that fills my battery, and I can execute at a high level. So now all of a sudden the results for the people are just starting to go crazy because they're getting everything from every angle in the best possible light. Does that make sense?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Right. And it's cool because she's been an admin or a team lead or an ISA her whole life. So 10 years, right? She's not 10 years old, her whole adult life.
Her whole career. Yeah.
And she's worked for multiple teams, and some have been good, some have been bad, and all that kind of stuff. And she kept telling me we need to hire because she can obviously see that we're bleeding cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, we need to add agents or whatever. And I'm like, no, we're not adding agents. I go, don't worry about the cash. And like every time she comes to ask me for money, right, to buy something, she's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't be sorry. I'm like, I knew this was going to happen. I'm like, I want to spend this money because I know what it's going to produce for the team. I know what value it's going to add. I know what stress it's going to take off of their plate. I go, we need these systems and these processes and these tools. We need them so the agents are fully equipped to do the best job possible so that they love being here. So it's fine, right? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, I know every time I talk to you is like $1,000. And I talk to you a lot, right? So anyways, so she sets up all that stuff and then allows me to do all the training and everything. And Oh, sorry, we're talking about hiring agents. Yeah. So we hired nobody. And she's starting to say, like, we need to start adding people. We need to start bringing people on. And I'm like, no. Like, if somebody really great comes along and they really want to be a part of this, we'll bring them. But actively, I don't want to go get anybody. And then around November, she's like, we really, really need to start adding people. Because she's been on teams and she knows you have to recruit and whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So real quick, at this time in November, how many people did you have? Was it just you and her? Or did you have
5 real agents?
Okay.
8 total, but 5, right?
5 full-time producing?
Full-time, showing up, working, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And so anyways, we had the 5, and I felt pretty good November, December, but I'm like, it's not the right time now, because if we bring people on, we're gonna have Christmas break, and then we're gonna have January, like January 1st, and I'm gonna go for vacation for a couple weeks, right? So I'm like, I don't want to bring anybody on right now, regardless of how good they are.
Yeah.
And then so she went and she procured a list of agents that have done anywhere from like 3 to 15 deals in the last 2 years, like individually each year. And she's like, I'm going to start calling these leads, basically agent leads, because those are the people we're looking for, right? 3 deals to 15 deals, where we could take them to 30 and 50 deals. The new agents will take them, but we don't really want them. And we cap it like 1 new agent to every 5 agents that have been in the business, because it's too much.
Yeah. So what do you mean by too much? You're kind of rolling the dice that you get a bad apple?
Not a bad apple, but it just, they need so much work and so much effort that it takes away from what you can do from other people. So like new agents belong on a team, but they don't get access to every team. And that's not what we are, right? Like this is a higher version team.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Callie was like, okay, well, I'm going to call like 3 hours a day. I'm going to make calls to all these agents and we'll book you meetings, because that's one of the things she used to do for other teams. And I told her, I go, I don't think we're going to need that. And she's like, really? She goes, like, how are we going to get agents then? I go, just, that's my job. Leave that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you go ahead and just keep doing the admin, keep doing the support, keep firing the leads up, keep handing over good quality leads. Like, you make sure that everybody's happy on this end. I will do the training and I'll do the hiring. And she's like, okay. And then, so I came back around January 10th and I'm like, okay, let's start turning it on, right? So I started posting about it, started sending some messages and everything. And what are we now, February 7th?
7th or 9th.
9th.
Yeah.
So for February 9th, we've hired 23 agents, new, since January 10th. So damn near an agent a day.
That's it?
It's great.
Just kidding.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
So you have the bandwidth to just go from 5 to 28 or whatever the number was?
We could for sure handle 50 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we're monitoring everything, right? Because like you don't know a system is good and it works until you stress it. And then you want to stress it and then you want to break it. And then when you break it, you figure out what broke it and fix it and make it better, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, like where could the bottlenecks be? Where could the breaks be? So like training is a big one, right? Our training is completely dialed in. So like, I don't think it could be broken.
Is it bottlenecked by you specifically, or is there
It's a business bottleneck. It could be anything, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Everything in, like, we call it operator, the one who runs and owns the team, right? So everything is the operator's fault, no matter what. No matter who dropped the ball at what level, it always rolls up to the operator, the owner, right? So yes, it's all my fault. Might not be my role, but it's still my fault, right?
For putting someone in that role, or
not training them, not supporting them properly, not giving them the tools that they needed, or the freedom they needed, or the scrutiny that they needed, right? So, what was the question again? Sorry, that we asked.
I think I said, were you the bottleneck in
the bottlenecks,
like in the training part of it?
Yeah,
there's just kind of like a follow up.
Yeah. So I was before, because I still had to sell, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden we would want to do training on whatever day it was, Tuesdays, but I would have a home inspection or a showing or a deposit I need to do, or all of a sudden I'm working on a listing or calling buyers or whatever, right? And it just, the training couldn't be there because I had split focus. So now I stopped doing deals in November, so I have no more deals. And my 100% focus is literally the office every day. Like I don't leave the office because that's where all the training is, right? So now, okay, training is dialed in 100%. So I'm like, okay, leads. We tried so many different lead sources, so many. And so now we fixed the lead flow problem, but it's like, okay, they're not converting properly. Why aren't they converting properly? And it was the ISAs. So we're like, okay, what's the ISA issue? Start listening to all the calls. English was a problem. Scripting was a huge problem because when you do ISAs, you're normally going to bring them in from other countries. And these other countries, unfortunately, they're poor countries and the people need the money. So they don't want to get fired. So they're super desperate to do exactly what's been told of them or asked of them, right?
Yeah, there's almost too much pressure and too much constraint on what they think
Yeah.
they should do.
Well, they
Is that what
think
you're saying?
they were given a script,
Yeah.
and they're like, I need to follow this exactly, like to the T.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd say like, hello, qualify, and the person's like, okay, cool, I'm ready to go. But they still had 3 more questions to ask in the script, so they would still ask those questions. And it's like, we're done, like just hand them over.
Yeah.
Or people would ask about Calgary and they wouldn't know anything about Calgary, or they would ask about something, right? And they just wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, we have an ISA problem now. And there's so many companies that hire ISAs, right? So you can source them out from these companies, but it rarely works out, right? In my experience. So we're testing ISAs from all over the world, from all different languages, from all different accents. And we finally realized it's like, no, you need an English speaking ISA. So like that adds the cost, and
From Calgary, you mean? Or just
doesn't have to be from Calgary,
like North American, basically?
or that they just English is their first language,
Okay. Yeah.
right? So so now that was important. Now all of a sudden, okay, we got that problem solved. So now the qualifying got better, but the urgency, the market, the city was another problem. So now how do we fix that problem with the ISAs? So then we started working on that and teaching about Calgary, teaching about the market. They sit in on all of our sales meetings now, so they understand how we handle objections, they understand our goals, they understand client needs, all that kind of stuff. So they're all learning on that, and I'm like, okay, so now when they're talking to customers, it sounds like they're from Calgary, right? And it sounds like they understand the Canadian market. I'm like, okay, so we fixed that bottleneck now. Okay, so now what's next? And so we just kept doing that with the small team, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like, because it was all broken. Like everything was broken, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, let's fix. And now I'd like to say everything's fixed. We'll see, right? But we've spent the time, we spent the money, we got the tools, we got the systems, we went all the training. We're set now. And I'm like, okay, well, now we just need to add people, right? So add money and people. So I'm like, okay, every agent we hire, we add a certain amount of ad spend, and then that increases the lead flow and everything, right? So I'm like, okay, well, let's just keep adding agents until the system breaks, and we'll see what happens. And then so we start adding and adding and adding and adding, and it's not breaking. I'm like, okay, keep going, right? So I can see the setup, and I know what my numbers are for my agent per staff ratio, and like we're there now, so I know I need to bring on a little bit more staff, but like we don't even have a bolt that came loose. Like everything is still so tight. So I'm like, we're nowhere near breaking. So we need more agents and more agents. So it's cool. So that's what you probably saw today. Like how many did you see come through here for interviews today? Did you see a bunch, or I guess you were in this corner?
To be honest, no, I was just like in this corner. Basically walked in, was greeted by mac and cheese. And then we just kind of came over here, talked to Kelty. And there were some people in the room that we were actually supposed to shoot at.
Oh, yeah.
So we just kind of set up here, and we were like,
I think this is better.
I think this is better too. The only issue I would have had with it before is just if there was a lot of like traffic. But
Yeah, Friday afternoon, everyone's gone.
Kelty was like, yeah, TGIF. So
Yeah.
And it actually wouldn't have been a super big pain to move all the stuff anyways, because getting it all out of the box and, putting all the pieces together, everything's on a tripod now. So
Yeah, it's easy.
it's pretty easy. So
Yeah.
I was like, all right, we'll just get it set up here. But yeah, so 23 agents. So how many are you going to onboard by the end of February?
We'll see. But
Yeah.
I would like 50 is what I would like.
Yeah.
So yeah, once we hit 50, that's a big number. And looking at other teams, other large teams, it seems like that 50 to 65 seems to be either a sweet spot or a mound that people can't get over in Canada. I've seen American teams that go bigger, but like Justin Haver has the biggest team, as far as I know, for numbers too. Him and Courtney Atkinson. And Justin, from what I can see, is anywhere from like 65 to 85 agents. So, and he's got a way higher lead gen process than us, and he's, I would say, more dialed in than anybody in the world. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to go that far because I'm already seeing a guy that's ahead of me, and that seems to be where his zone's at. So I'm like, let me get to just underneath that, and let's run that for a little bit, and let's see how it feels. and then keep pushing past. Because, yeah, it's success leaves clues, and you need to look in front of you. And I'm like looking at all these other teams, and I'm like, yeah, it's that 50, 55, 60 is kind of like where they kind of roam, right?
Where they, yeah.
It just seems like they can't really get past that. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to shoot far past that because we don't have a problem attracting and we don't have a problem recruiting. Like we have lots of people coming in that want to be on the team, but I don't want to go so far where we miss something important. So I want to see when we get there, and I want to start to feel it myself and be like, okay, like this is why these teams get constricted here. Like this is why they bottleneck at 60. And then we'll kind of go from there. Well, 50 is where I want to stop.
Yeah. Do you think that could be a limiting belief though?
So that's a good point. So there's limiting beliefs, but then there's also seeing things and just understanding that people are ahead of me and they keep hitting a wall here. So I don't think I'm going to stop there, but I understand that the waters look murky there, right? It looks like it's turbulence.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, let me just see what it is and then we'll keep going. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right. I don't have a limiting belief. Like numbers are like, we'll go forever. And the thing with me is like, I really don't care about results. I just care about the process and the procedure and the execution of things. So it's like, I know that we have to train, recruit, retain, and just keep doing that again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
So like, I know the results will come if we keep doing that. Right.
Inputs create outputs.
Yeah. You got it.
To simplify it. But yeah. So obviously if, you're training and recruiting so many people, you have to, as a operator, have like an attractive offer, right? So what's drawing so many people in? Like, what do you think that is?
Yeah. So I like that actually. So it's just gaps, right? So we have a lot of people that are more experienced agents that are coming on, and the thing that they're looking for is how to take their business from that 15 to 20 deals to 50 deals, because they've been able to get there. And one question I always ask everybody is like, so what's your production last year? Whatever, right? 15 deals.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you do to get those 15 deals? And they don't know, right? They're like, I don't know, I talked to people, my phone rang. I think I made some posts, right?
Yeah, yeah. So they're not super dialed in. They don't have super great systems.
They just don't have the foundation.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So habits and standards, right? So they don't have the habits and the standards that produce business, or that they know what produces business. So for us on the team, right, we have a ton of leads. We warm them up really, really well. And we're going to take care of them on that side. But I want them to be able to stand on their own 2 feet after they're done with the team. That's super important to me. I think I'm the only team that I know that wants people off the team, right? I've structured the splits and everything so much that it gets so good for them after the first year and second year. I don't think anybody's going to leave because it wouldn't save them any money. But if they want to, they have the ability to. And they understand that coming in, that is my intention, is to get them to the place where they can 100% stand on their own 2 feet, but make it so good that they don't want to. Does that make sense?
Leave them better than you found them. Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is when I said habits and standards and they don't know where their deals came from, I'm like, okay, well, why don't we work on your schedule first, right? What's your schedule look like? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, there's a bottleneck. So every Monday we print out everybody's schedules. We have a one-on-one with them, and then all the activities that they need to do are there in the first column. Nothing is filled out for the week. I'm like, this is your schedule. You own this. So you fill out the things that you're going to do this week, right? And then they'll start filling it out. I'm like, okay, this looks a little heavy. You're going to door knock 4 days a week? Well, I want to. I'm like, okay. Are you? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
It's in your calendar. Commit to it.
It's in your calendar.
Yeah.
Well, no, because once it's in their calendar, I'm committed to it. So they make their calendar.
Okay.
I will commit to the calendar. Does that make sense?
Not really. No. Do you want to?
So this is like what Amon says, right?
Yeah.
So they'll fill in whatever it is that they're going to do based on what their
goals are.
Not goals, what they're willing to put in for the week.
Okay.
Right? As soon as they write that down, that becomes mine. You know what I'm saying?
So you're holding them accountable to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of backtrack. We'll sidetrack this a little bit. So when people are coming to the team, one of the things that I tell them is a very difficult part for realtors is they don't understand that they have to wear 2 hats. They have to wear an employer hat and an employee hat. So the employer hat is the big picture, the moving things, right? So like colors, logos, schedules, just stuff that's going to move your business, right? Which direction it's going. That's the employer. The employee has to do all the things. So they have to do all the calls. They have to do all the door knocking. They have to work all the open houses, all the stuff that nobody wants to do. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to be the employer. Nobody wants to do the employee stuff, but this is what makes them the money, right?
Yeah.
So when they come on the team, I said, why we're so good with everybody is we take the employer stuff off your plate completely. So that's like working the schedule, right? So you make the schedule. So I'll help you with the employer stuff, as in we'll make that together. But then I pull that off and I become your employer and I will make you work that schedule, right? You go and you work any job, like let's say like McDonald's or Tim Hortons or, the Bay or whatever store, mm-hmm. You work the schedule.
Yeah.
So me and you will make that schedule together and I'll make sure that you don't overload it, but I'll make sure you don't underload it so that it's what I think you're actually going to do for work based on what your habits are. And then I'll pull that off and I will be the employer and you'll be the employee. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So they're becoming an employee.
They're an employee.
Now they're a slave to their own business, like they probably should be.
Not a slave to their own business. No, they're an employee in the team.
Yeah.
And what happens, what a lot of people don't understand is there's a lot of pressure and stress that come with the employer side. And what happens is when you're not doing the thing that you're supposed to do, that adds so much weight to you as a person. And that weight holds you down. And that weight takes your energy. And that weight takes your life away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden Tuesday comes and Wednesday comes and you're not working that schedule, but you're the employer. The weight of that gets heavier every day that you miss. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So even though you want it, you don't really want it. So what happens, I say, let me take that from you, right? I will carry that weight. You just work the schedule and I'll make sure that you work the schedule. And in that, working that schedule over time, what are they building? Habits and standards. Mm-hmm. So what happens is 52 weeks of that, of working that schedule, of doing it week in, week out, of not having to think about it. Now it becomes autopilot. So week 53, when their contract is done with the team and they want to go do it on their own, they don't even need the employer side anymore because the habit and the standard is built so strong that they just carry it on.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
So people think that they want this and they should have it and they should own it, but you don't need to own it today, right? Learn this today. Be an employee in your business so you learn it and then you could take over the ownership of it, right? Yep. So that's what's so attractive of our team.
Yeah. I guess just to maybe poke a hole in something you said, like obviously you want people to have that foundation to succeed even long after being on your team, right? But if you're hiring ISAs and doing a lot of the admin work and, generating leads for them, mm-hmm. How does that help them when they leave the team?
Yeah, so I don't want them to leave. I want them to be here forever, right?
Yeah.
So that stuff only exists on the team. If they want to go do that on their own, I've got absolutely no problem. I've got 2 people right now that I'm showing them. I'm like, here's how you do this, right? Here's how you get the ISAs. Here's how much it costs. Here's how much follow-up you have to do. Here's how much stuff you need to make sure is in check. And like, here's go and do it. And all of a sudden they're like, I don't want to do all that. I'm like, well, then just stay. Then it's okay, right?
Yeah.
Like not everybody needs to do all that stuff. I'm like, why don't you make all this money and not worry about any of that then, right? I'll show you everything. Here you go. But yeah, and then like you want to build your business up to a point where like you become repeat referral, right? So you've done so many deals that all of your clients are coming back to you. They're referring all of their friends and family. You're selling their kids' houses and stuff like that. It just takes time, right? So like the more deals you can do, the faster you can get to that point. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Right. So like once they get to that point that it's all repeat referral and they don't need the ISAs and they don't need the TCs, they don't need all that stuff, then yeah, it makes 100% logical sense. They shouldn't be here anymore. Right. But until that point, and yeah, we just want to keep nurturing them and helping them.
Yeah. So how do you get to 186 deals in the 3rd year? Cause like, obviously you're not selling like your clients' kids when you're doing like 186 deals.
Well, I've got no repeat referral. It's my 3rd year. Right?
Yeah.
So I've got none of that.
Yeah. That's pretty much like the point I was getting at, right? So it was just a lot of door knocking, a lot of calling.
None. Zero. No, 0 phone calls, 0 door knocking, and 0 open houses. Yeah. Everything came from social media.
Oh, okay.
All of it.
It's crazy.
So what happened is I didn't understand this at the time what I was building, but we call it being top of preference, not top of mind. Super important, right? So when you're putting stuff out on social media, you're signaling your audience on who you are and what you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So everything that I was posting, all the work I was putting in, like I was constantly on my story, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., doing deals. So people saw that I was doing deals till 3 a.m. in the morning. They can't even get a hold of their realtor last time. They didn't even hear from them for weeks. Here's a guy that's working till 3 a.m. Then the next day they would see me knocking doors because nothing fits the criteria that my people want. And I will knock every door in the community until I find them that house that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they just, like all this other stuff, they just seen me working all the time. Plus, every time I made a post was always a signaling post. Always. So the market is going this way because of these factors. Here's the people that are going to win. Here's how you win more. Here's the people that are going to lose. Here's how you protect yourself from losing the least. Right? Because like realtors often, they talk from both sides of their mouth. Right? They're like, it's the best time to buy and it's the best time to sell. No, it isn't. Like
it's the best time to do one or the other.
Yeah. Or it's the best time for these people to sell, but it's the worst time for these people to sell.
Yeah.
And it's the absolute best time for this person to buy, but these people should wait.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would segment it into who would actually win and who would lose and how to help them. And then I would signal, and I would tie that in, with what's going on in the market and macro and microeconomics. So I'd be like, because everybody reads macro headlines. The sky is falling right now, right? Toronto and Vancouver is tanking, so Canada's tanking.
Yeah.
Well, Calgary's fucking booming, right?
Yeah. Thriving.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens is why? So I need to look at the macroeconomics of the country, the microeconomics of those economies and what's signaling those, and how that affects our economy, and predict which way it's going to go and why and how it's going to happen. Right? And then put that into something where people can easily digest it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So like a big one these last couple of years is what people didn't understand. Variable rate mortgages went crazy. Like fixed did too, but the variable is what was in the news. And the Toronto market I knew was going to collapse. I said it straight up, and I have lots of agents in Toronto like, I've been a realtor for 15 years and the market's never gone down here. I'm like, well, it's about to. I'm like, I could tell you why. Because people can't afford a $15,000 to $20,000 mortgage payment, right? And as these interest rates keep climbing, the pain is going to be so high that they're going to need to sell because they're going to start going into foreclosure. But they've got $1 million of equity. And what pain are they feeling right now? Payment pain. What do they not have? Equity pain.
Equity pain, yeah.
Where can they solve that problem?
By moving here?
Paying cash. Right? They can sell their house there that they've got $1 million of equity in. They could come here. They can buy a house for $600,000, have $400,000 in the bank, and never worry about a mortgage payment for the rest of their life, and have like a similar quality house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Where was Calgary ranked for livability the last couple of years?
I don't know.
Number one.
Oh.
Where was Calgary ranked for air quality the last couple of years? Number one. Where was Calgary ranked for income versus housing costs in the world? Number one. Why wouldn't you move here, right? So I was seeing all of these pieces move around, and I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen, and it's going to make sense. And what happens? All of a sudden, the news starts going. $1.8 million house in Toronto worth $1.2 million because no one's buying there anymore because everyone's leaving. I'm like, see, I told you guys, it's going to collapse. Now what's going to happen? Interest rates are going to fall. Migration is still high. Immigration is still high. Toronto's going to pop. It's going to go up. What happens when Toronto goes up here? Typically it goes down. But what happens to our population in the last couple of years? We're adding 1 million people a year. Those people are still coming here. So we're still going to be okay. Like, you don't understand what I'm saying? Like, you have to watch everything, all the policies, all of the stuff that's happening in Canada, in the US, around the world, what's going on with oil, what's going on with crypto, what's going on with tech, what's going on with all this stuff. How is this affecting the world market, the Canadian market, the Alberta market, and then the Calgary market? And how can we predict what's going to happen next? Right? I know it's like a long answer, but I would break pieces of that into posts, and I'd be right because I pay attention to it. And the people are like, oh man, if I'm buying, I need to buy with Shawn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of the realtors doing TikTok dances, right? Hey, here's a first time home buyer. You need to buy. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, that gets some people's attention,
Sure.
maybe depending on how attractive you might be. But I was a little distracted by Max snoring.
Snoring,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. The most surprising thing or surprising stat you just said was that Calgary has the best air quality. A lot of like oil field activity out here, you know? So that's like a very surprising.
That's up north, but Calgary, right? Our air quality is always super high here in Calgary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And like, what's a big population that's been coming here lately?
People from Toronto and BC.
Asians.
Oh, okay.
What's a big thing on their list?
Yeah.
Right. Air quality.
Oh.
Right. Factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I heard too through the grapevine is that you're a pretty shrewd negotiator.
What?
Even like one of the toughest to go up against.
I wouldn't say that. You think so?
I don't know. Like I'm not a real estate agent, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just what some people say. So what do you think makes you so good at it, or what's some tips?
It's not about shrewd. It's about getting the right price. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? And it's about getting the right deal. So that's I think the biggest thing, right? Like some people just throw some stupid shit out there that makes no sense. So what happens is a lot of times the other agent wants to give you the right price, but their client won't allow them to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like, let's say you're on the buy side, this is super often, and the listing is too high. So let's just use easy numbers. Let's just say the house is worth $500,000 and they've got it listed for $535,000. It's only worth $500,000, let's say, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get that $535,000 down to $500,000, right?
Or even below.
Or below,
Yeah.
sure, right? Yeah. But that's another thing too, is what people understand is the market's going up, right? So if you miss that deal and it takes you a week or 2 weeks to do it, that 500 benchmark now just became 508. So by trying to save that 10,000 that doesn't exist, you just cost yourself 10,000 of real money. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah.
There are for sure times where you can see that you've got a weak person on the other side and you could push it further than it really should go, but it's rare. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But so a big thing that I like to do is we use a strategy called "You're okay, I'm okay." It disarms people and it allows the gate. Once the gate is down, then we could cross over into their side and help them understand what they need to understand. Okay. So when a listing's overpriced, so let's say 535 and we want it for 500 or push it down to 490 if we can. The thing that like the opposite of what people think, we tell the people, the listing agent, that we're obsessed with the house. My clients are absolutely obsessed. They love this house. They've already given the kids bedrooms. They've already started picking out furniture and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're moved into this house.
Mentally.
They're buying it.
Yeah.
Right? What's the listing agent going to say? Right? Awesome. This is great.
Yeah.
Right? Perfect. My guy wants the house. He has to have it. Right? Like he's already got the moving boxes. So the now listing agent's fired up. You're like, but there's one problem. I can't get to your price. I'm doing everything I can. I just can't get there.
Yeah.
Right? I'm running all these comps. I'm doing all this stuff. The math ain't mathing. Can you just show me how you got to 535 with your customer? And I'll bring you a full price offer right now. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've already got it written up. I just can't get there. So I can show my customers 535. Because when I'm showing them, it's coming out at 490. And then it'll be like, well, this is what my customer wants. Like, okay, that's good. But like,
what does the market demand?
Like just show me the houses that you used to get the 535.
Yeah.
And then they won't be able to. And they'll be like, my seller just wants this price. I'm like, oh, I totally get it, man. My guys want crazy prices all the time too. So you know it's overpriced then, right? You're the one that just told me that? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, here's the comps that we got. Here's the comps that everyone else is going to use. Why don't we craft an email together that's going to make sense and give it to your sellers? And let's get this deal off the market. Let's get them moving on with their life into their next house. Let's get you paid and let's get my clients happy. Everybody wins. We're on the same team here. We have the same goal, right? What's your goal? To move that house. Well, that's my goal too. So why don't we work together on this one?
Yeah.
And see how all of a sudden we've brought them onto our side now?
Yeah. You've made everyone one team instead of
against each other.
Buyer versus seller. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. So like I would say like that's in true negotiations, because if you just try to bully your way in and just be like, we're doing this and fuck you, it's not going to work. Right. And what happens is you're going to cost your clients money because the market is going up. And every time that you lose is another week finding another house as the market's going up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right. So it's super important that, we understand real negotiations and the market and how things are going. Right. So.
Yeah. maybe shrewd was a little bit of like a strong word. Maybe I misinterpreted that.
Yeah,
but
right. That's okay.
yeah,
But yeah, like sometimes you could push things further for sure.
yeah,
Like I've had conversations with other realtors, and we always, you got to call it coffee worthy, right? But we got to warm them up and get to certain levels where we're friendly with each other. And in doing so, sometimes I get information that they really shouldn't have given me. And I'm like, okay, well, you shouldn't have told me that. And now I'm going to push that button really hard, right?
yeah.
And then there's where we get better deals than we should, for sure. But oftentimes, right, it's you're fighting with someone to get the right price. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But some people they're not able to do that either, and then they overpay, right? Like I got one really good example. This is a while ago now, I guess, but we sold this one house, and market value. Oh, good.
Oh no, I didn't say anything.
Yeah,
my knuckles just cracked.
Market value was like 510, and another house had just sold for 550, and these were both like renovated houses, older houses, and like that middle wall that always separates the kitchen from the living areas in these old houses. So this other house had taken that wall down, so it was open concept. They did glass stairs and just more upgrades, and they had a huge pie lot backyard, and it was like awesome yard. My house still had that wall in the kitchen, which is a huge value difference. Had the old, like this 1960s staircase that they just painted, and a very regular yard, right? So those are like big dollar ticket things, right? So at least $30,000 to $50,000 in difference between the two houses. The other house, they'd listed it for 560, and they'd accepted an offer at 550, and that just happened before we were going to go live. So I said, look what happened here, right? They came down $10,000 because they overlisted for what the market is worth, and they had to negotiate down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make people go crazy for this house. I'm going to get a lineup of people, and I'm going to find that one desperate person that's going to overpay, right? And I go, I need to really underlist it. I need to go 10% under market value. And there's guys like, well, I thought they were going to fight me on it, but I'd sold their kid's house. Those are the parents now. And they're like, yeah, whatever you want to do, you do it. I'm like, okay. So I underlisted it. We have different strategies and stuff that we implemented in the listing time. And I found my one realtor that I needed, and I walked them up to 555. So I got 5,000 more than the better house. It's huge.
Interesting.
Then they came back on the home inspection, right? And on the home inspection, they asked for a lot of stuff to get fixed, plus a $10,000 discount, because they just seen all of the stuff come up in the week or week and a half, other sales where they'd overpaid. They could see it because they're watching the market.
Right. Yeah.
And the realtor goes to me like, I know we overpaid for this house. My client knows we overpaid for the house. And I'm like, okay, cool. You did, for sure. So you want to cancel? And they're like, well, no, we want the house, but we just want the discount and the stuff fixed. I'm like, no, just send me a termination form. They're like, what? I'm like, terminate it. I go, I need you to terminate this because we actually have better offers now. And what happened is we didn't. But she had told me, right, in the warm-up process, she had told me that they'd lost out on 6 bidding wars. And they'd be shopping for months. And they're getting tired and frustrated and annoyed.
So you're pushing that button really hard.
I said, why don't you just go back out and find them another house then, right? You've already lost 6. Why don't you go lose 7, right? I go, do you really want to go through that again? Look at all the emotional pain you guys have been through. Look at the frustration that you've been through. Look at the turmoil, right? I go, do you really want to go back out into the market and it's even crazier now than it was then? Or you just want to lock this one in? And like, no, you're right. We don't want to go back on the market and find another one. Let's lock it in. Okay, send me the waiver. We took nothing off, not $1. So that would be maybe shrewd negotiations. But that's because their realtor slipped up and said something they never should have told me.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's one thing to say my customers love the house, they need the house, they can't picture themselves living somewhere else. That's whatever. But if you tell me I've lost 6 bidding wars, I know what your customer feels like right now. And I know you're worried about getting fired. And I know you're worried about how much time you just wasted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? So when you come to me with some shit, I'm easily going to be able to counter that.
Yeah, you're pushing the client's button and the realtor's button too, because
Well,
you said, he's.
I don't have access to the client. So I need to push the realtor's button.
Right.
Yeah.
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 But you're kind of pushing their button to get to him.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
Or her. But
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But so imagine that. So now we got way above what that house is worth. Not even close. Right. But it's the right marketing strategy with the right negotiations, with the right stuff. And that's where a realtor can make a big difference. Right. So, yeah.
This realtor's going to be kind of pissed listening to this, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's a them problem.
Yeah.
I've done it. I've done that many times. Like many times. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I heard you have a platform on School called, well, I guess Alpha Agents, right?
Yeah.
So I guess walk me through that. Like, I know a lot of people are saying that you spend so much time and energy into, so I guess like what is it, and what's, I guess like who's the target demographic for that?
Totally. Yeah. So I love Alpha Agents because like it is such a good program, and I'm very rarely proud of things in my life. My brain just won't allow me to be, but that's one that I am for sure. So what it is literally every single possible thing that I could think of that helped me get my first $1 million in real estate. All the negotiation strategies, like that one that we just talked about there, all of the mindset stuff, all of the disciplines, all of the prospecting strategies, everything like thoroughly detailed and laid out with video and copy. So no matter how you learn, it's there for you. And it's just an incredible resource for agents in anything that they need to do in the business. And it's all in bite-sized modules. So you can go exactly to where you need to go to and get exactly what you need. So I know I love it. And what happened is I was speaking on stage quite a bit, and people kept wanting to buy a course from me. I didn't have one to sell. So that's what sparked it, right? To make it was like all these people literally asking for something. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly there's a demand in the market for it. So I'll make it. But I'm like, I'm actually not going to make it to sell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it as a training manual for my people that is as detailed as I possibly can for my agents. And if I never sell one, I've got this resource for the team that is incredible, right? Mm-hmm. I go, if it sells, great. If it doesn't, I don't care. I go, I'm making it for the team. And that took so much pressure off because it didn't matter if I did it for the marketplace or if it did well or it didn't do well or whatever, right? So yeah, that's what it was. That's what it is. So
yeah. So do you charge people on your team to have access to it?
No, it's free on the team.
It's free for the team.
Yeah,
but
and $3,000 US outside the team, outside the downline.
Oh, so people in the downline
they get it
for
too.
free. Oh,
yeah.
That's a really nice value add, actually.
Yeah, people kept trying to tell me to charge for it too in the downline. Like, just give them a discount. I'm like, these are my people. Like, I'm not like these people signed up with EXP and they signed up into my group.
And yeah,
because they thought I was going to help them with their business and help them make money. So like, why I can't charge them, right?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting attraction strategy. You know, if let's say John, who's not an EXP agent, wants to join EXP, and he's just going to go solo anyways.
Yep.
But is it like, oh, do I join Sean's downline or do I join this guy's downline or this person's? Well, Sean's going to give me alpha agents for free, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So yeah, it's been good. It's been great. So and the feedback's been awesome on it. Yeah, I love it. It's been good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you get into real estate in the first place? Like, what inspired you to do that?
I've always wanted to do real estate. So I tried to get in when I was 19 years old. I took the course in Vancouver, made it to the third chapter, and got on my own head, right? And I'm like, fuck, I'm like 19 years old. I have no idea how to sell real estate. Who's going to listen to a kid? Where am I getting my customers from? And I remember I was sitting in the library studying, because back in like 2004, and I was in the library studying, and I was thinking like, man, like, what am I do to get customers? I'm like, do I just, like, I see these like people in the mall, right? With like the booths in the mall with like the listing sheets everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I sit there and get customers and stuff? Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
When you're 19, you're just dumb, right? Like
right?
you don't know anything.
Well, you remember 2004, was there YouTube?
No.
Not really. Right. Was there Facebook?
Nope.
Right. Was Google what it is today?
Absolutely not.
Right. So the information wasn't there.
Yes. What's your resource? Just
there was
you
none.
hope and pray that whoever you
sign
go
on
to
with.
a brokerage. Yeah.
Right.
That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, so I got on my own head and I didn't make it, right? I quit. And then this is like, let's take the whole hour, so we won't get into the story, but my life had completely fallen apart. I'd gotten fired from my job and I was going completely broke. And that's when I decided it was time to get into real estate, when I literally had no money and no hope. So Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess, is there a way you can tell the story of having no money and no hope in less than an hour?
Yeah.
Or,
Well, I can get into it a little bit. Yeah.
yeah.
But basically what happened is, I had an amazing life. We had no debt. We had investments, owned a property, and, our life turned upside down completely. And I ended up losing my wife. I ended up losing my job, and I ended up losing my health all within 30 days.
Damn.
And, yeah, so that all happened within 30 days. And I spiraled out of control, and I spent all my money, and I went into complete debt. And I just was like at the lowest you could possibly get. I tried to kill myself 2 times. Just couldn't go through with it, but I definitely tried. And then I was under so much pressure and stress and anxiety. My body started shutting down. So I developed an autoimmune disease. I don't know if you saw that post on that one, where I've got the hives everywhere.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I got hives everywhere, and like it was bad. Like every inch of my body was covered in them. And then my lungs went down to like 30% capacity. My resting heart rate was like 95 BPM, which is huge. And I was getting heartburn so bad, it literally burnt my vocal cords. Like I didn't know that was a thing, but the acidity in my heartburn was so bad that it burnt my voice, that my voice changed. And then when I was going to the doctors, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, because they're like, yeah.
So you didn't used to sound like that. You used to sound different?
I used to sound worse than this, way worse. So it got better. Yeah.
No, I guess like before the autoimmune disease, like did you sounded worse before the autoimmune disease?
No.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have a raspy voice at all.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no rasp. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I was like Justin Bieber. Could have been a singing career.
Yeah. Could have sang Baby or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So the heart, it was horrible, right? And I was like throwing up all the time, and like I couldn't help it. And the doctors, they couldn't figure out what was wrong. I was doing so many tests. I was getting fucking cameras shoved everywhere. I was hooked up to all these fucking monitors. I was in this fucking air box on a bike, and they had tubes hooked up to me everywhere trying to figure out how I was breathing. And they're like, we can see that your capacities are all bad, but we don't know what's causing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm like, man, where's Dr. House? Like, can he solve my problems? Remember House, that TV show?
No, I've never seen it.
It's good.
Maybe I'm a little too young for that.
Yeah, it's a good show, man.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, so I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And it was horrible. And the autoimmune disease was all really bad, right? Like some days my eyes would swell shut. My mouth would start, like the hives would go on my lips. So I couldn't close my mouth properly, and I'd be drooling everywhere. Like it was fucking horrible. And it always felt like with my lungs, it always felt like somebody was sitting on my chest, always, right? Because I couldn't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And then my heart rate was so high, I was always getting dizzy and stuff. And that's when I was in real estate, starting out trying to make money.
Knock doors with like a swollen face.
Nothing ever stopped me.
Yeah.
No matter what, I would go. Didn't matter what I looked like. Didn't matter what I felt like. Didn't matter what was going on. It was just the work needed working.
It was just go. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then, so I remember the autoimmune disease. I thought I was allergic to something, right? Because it just came out of nowhere. Like I was fine. And then all of a sudden I was getting hives all the time, like so many hives. I'm like, fuck, I must be eating something or touching something or something, right? Like something's going on. And so I went to go get a allergy test, $55. It's a lot of money back then, right? And so I went in there, I paid my $55. I sat in the doctor's office, whatever. And the nurse comes in first, and I guess she does like a checklist or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the nurse comes in first, and she looks at me, and she's like, oh, we got to refund your money. I'm like, you got to refund? No, don't refund my money. I'm like, I need to know what's wrong with me, what I'm allergic to. And she's like, you're not allergic to anything. She goes, I can't say anything because I'm the nurse, but the doctor will come, and he'll talk to you. I'm like, okay.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I'm waiting, and then the doctor comes, and the doctor looks at me, and he's like, oh, man. He goes, we know what this is. I'm like, really? I'm like, you don't got to test me or do a little scratch test or whatever, right?
The way you say it makes it sound like really bad too.
It is bad.
Yeah.
Right? He goes, you're not allergic to anything. Well, I shouldn't say you're not allergic to anything. You don't have an allergy right now. He goes, you've stressed your body so bad that you've given yourself an autoimmune disease. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, what's that mean?
Yeah.
He goes, you have this for life, right? He goes, there's this one treatment, some shots. He goes, it's got, I can't remember, it's like a 30% chance of being successful. And if not, then you've kind of got it for life. And then there's this trial that they're doing right now that it's normally like $10,000 a shot or something like that. And it's in the trial phase. And I can recommend that you get into the trial for free. I'm like, oh, free sounds good, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, it's a trial, so you might get the placebo or you might get the real juice. He goes, so we'll see which one it is. I'm going to recommend that they give you the real stuff because you're so fucked, right? And he goes, I will literally put your name on the top of the pile so that you get into the trial. But that is like whatever, a 70% likelihood of succeeding. But if that doesn't succeed, then this is for life now. So we can give you Blexten and stuff like that to control the outbreaks and control the hives. But at best, we're just controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. I'm like, that fucking sucks. So he gave me all the stuff for the trial. And he's like, we'll get you set up on it. And he's just call in and we'll book you in and all that stuff. And I asked him, I'm like, so this was stress that caused this? And he goes, yeah, stress. I'm like, okay. I'm like, if stress caused this, I'm like, so my mind did it. Can my mind not take it away? He goes, no, it's not like that. He's like, it's like you fried an egg. It's coagulated. He goes, can you fry an egg and put it back into the shell like it never happened? I'm like, well, no. He's like, that's what you did to your body. I'm like, fuck, that sucks. I'm like, okay. So I went back into my truck and I'm sitting downstairs and I can't even drive because my eyes are fucking spelled shut. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, like I did this to me. So I have to be able to undo it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like it just wasn't registering that if I did it, I can't undo it, right? I'm like, that just doesn't math to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I got to fix this. So I'm like, how can I fix it? What's stressing me? And obviously it's money, production, imposter syndrome, and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay. So I went back home and I'm like, okay, let me just get my mornings right and my days right and my prospecting right, and everything will take care of itself. So I made a really strong morning routine, and like some people believe in it and some people don't. Mine wasn't super long with like all this journaling and all that kind of shit, but it was, let me get my mind right, let me get my body right, and let me get my spirit right, and let me start my day, right? So I just say my affirmations in the mirror. So I just tell myself of who I was in the future. So like, I am successful, I don't have debt, I help people, I run a big business, like that stuff. And then I would hit the floor and I would just like really lightly stretch, but I would visualize my entire day, right? So I'd just sit there and I'd just stretch in the darkness and I'd be like, okay, here's this meeting and here's this going to go. And I'm going to knock these doors and here this is going to go. And I make this post and that's how this is going to go. And I would literally just visualize my whole day so that when I got to that part of my day, there was no anxiety to it because I'd already done it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I would go get my workout in. And then when I came home, I would make my breakfast and I would watch an educational video on something, either something on real estate or construction or something that I needed for the business. So I'd watch all that. And then that was my morning routine. And once that got really solid, all of my prospecting started getting really solid. And all of that stuff all started picking up, right? And I also made a covenant with myself, like a do or die moment. I don't know if I touched on that one. Not yet.
No.
So that happened and I was already working towards stuff, but I still wasn't really getting results. And I remember I was putting out open house signs one day and my life was getting worse every day. So I had all of those physical problems. My financial problems were getting worse. I wasn't selling any houses and I'm putting out open houses and nothing's working. And you got to remember, I have no mentorship. I have no leadership. I have nobody telling me if the stuff is going to work or not. I'm just doing it. Right? There's nobody that's like, oh, don't worry. If you do enough of this, this will happen. I'm literally just doing this blind. Everything.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm putting out the open house signs and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, I just don't want to live. Right. And at this time I'd already tried to kill myself one time and there'd be one time after this, but I'm putting them out and I'm like, I just don't want to be alive anymore. I'm like, I would literally rather be dead. So I'm like, you know what? I'm like, my life fucking sucks. It's completely fallen apart. I'm going to give it everything I have, 100% of everything. I'm going to make no excuses. I'm going to take no rest. I'm going to let no fear get in my way. I'm going all in. And by December 31st, 2019, so inside my first year, so by December 31st, 2019, my life isn't moving in the right direction, then I will kill myself. And I went home and I wrote it on my calendar, if you can imagine, right? So imagine writing your death day on a calendar.
Yeah. D-Day. Yeah.
Right? So you know that story, I think it's Eric Thomas, right? The guru story.
I've heard of him. I don't know what his story is, or
Right.
maybe I need a refresher.
So this guy wants to be great at whatever it is, right? And he goes, I want to be the greatest. And the guru says, you want to be the greatest? He goes, yeah. He goes, okay, meet me out at the ocean at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. The guy goes, okay. So they go out there and he goes, walk with me in the water. And then so they walk in the water. And then the guru grabs the guy and he dunks his head under the water and he holds it there. And the guy's struggling and fighting. And then he pulls it up. The guy takes a big breath. And before he can get a big breath, he smashes his head back under the water. And he's drowning. He's struggling. And he pulls him back up and he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then he smashes him again one more time. And now he's holding him under the water until he's pretty much passing out. Right before he passes out, he pulls him up. And the guy takes a huge breath of air. And he goes, what are you doing? He goes, until you want success as bad as you want it to breathe, you will never have it, right? So until I wanted success more than I was willing to die, I wasn't going to have it. So when people say, oh, because something that people debate me on all the time is that I didn't knock 300 doors in a day. I did it consistently all the time. But I was knocking doors like my fucking life depended on it. I was making calls like if I didn't make them, I was going to fucking die, right? So I worked literally like my life depended on it because every day was a day closer to December 31st, 2019, right? So that coupled with all the other stuff, I started doing deals. The financial pressure started coming off. And with that and a couple other things, all of a sudden I started breathing again. My heart started to slow down. My hives started to go away. All the stress came off. And now all of a sudden my life just starts getting better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was because I was just putting in the work, putting in the reps. And I was literally working with my life, like my life depended on it. And that alleviated all the financial pressure. And once the financial pressure came off, that enabled me to handle my emotional stresses and my emotional pressure, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's
Yeah. So I guess an interesting question would be if the pressure was coming off or being relieved, you said that there was another attempt afterwards, right? So did you want to dive into that?
The second time?
Yeah.
Yeah, depression's a bitch, man. It's tough, right? So like when you're depressed, you don't want to do anything. You have to, but you don't want to, right? And when you're depressed, it could be like you're already over the edge, right? You're already falling, and just the littlest bit of wind or the littlest touch can push you over. So yeah, I remember I was at a house party, right? Apartment party. And everyone was doing their own thing and whatever. And like, I really didn't go out much at this time in my life because I was working. But for whatever reason, I ended up out this night, right? And there's a bunch of people inside, whatever. And I remember I went out to the balcony and I just didn't want to be around anybody and I didn't want to be talking or nothing. And I'm like, fuck, man, like I'm trying so hard. And every time I try, it gets worse. And like, I keep going backwards. And I'm like, it's not worth it, right? And this is after I'd already made the deal with myself. And like my relationship at the time started failing and like just everything was bad. So yeah, I just stepped on the other side of the balcony and this was on like the 27th floor of a building. And yeah, I just stepped on the other side of the building and I just leaned back, right? Of the balcony, sorry. And I just leaned back. And I'm like, all I have to do is let go. And as soon as I let go of all of my pain and all of my problems and everything just stops. And that was just so peaceful. And I'm like, man, I just need to let go. And I didn't, thank God. And the only reason I didn't was my niece and my nephew, because I kept thinking that they were so young and they were going to see the splattered body as the casket and how bad that was going to scar them. Like obviously my mom and my sister and family and everything for sure. But I'm like, my niece and my nephew is going to be like the worst. So then I climbed back on the other side of the balcony and just went home and went to work. So yeah, that was the second one. And the first one was the exact same. I was sitting at my condo where I lived at the time and yeah, just working throughout the night, Nothing was going well. Just stepped on the other side of the balcony, leaned back, and same thing. I just couldn't let go.
Yeah, that's crazy. I know you probably have to get running here soon,
That's
but
okay.
I guess just two more questions before we wrap it up. I guess the first one is like obviously you have such an intriguing story of like literally do or die, or else, and so that's why you're successful, right? Like, so is there any way that you can give something like that to your agents? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I hope
like
they
how
never,
do you?
I hope they never have to go through that.
No, I mean like the good parts of it. Like, how do you?
I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's literally what I've done and why I do what I do, right? And like to finish that, the only reason why I actually didn't end up killing myself in 2019 on December 31st, the last day, is one of the requirements was financially be okay, but to be happy, or at least moving towards happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't. So I remember, so I did my first deal 1 month, and the next month I did 17 deals. And so when I did 17 deals, I'm like, okay, I could see the pressure coming off now, right? I'm not going to feel it coming off because it's going to be like 2-3 months till I start getting paid for these things. But I know it's coming now, at least. I can figure it out 2-3 months, right?
Yeah.
So that happened, but I still didn't feel good. I still wasn't happy. I was still super, super sad and depressed. And it wasn't working, right? So I remember, so I did the 17 deals, and then I made a post. And so this is moving into November now. And I made a post, and I said, I don't know everything. I'm not a coach. I'm not a guru, but I know what I did to do these deals. And I'm just going to give it to somebody for free, whoever wants it. I'm going to just do like a 1 week coaching kind of thing of however long it takes me to do all of the stuff that I learned, because I don't want anybody to feel what I felt at the beginning, where I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go find the information of how to get prospecting and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I put that post out there, and 4 people signed up. And I'm like, shit, I got nothing, right? Because I didn't build a coaching program. I was never planning on doing it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give to whoever felt how I felt the answers.
Yeah.
Right.
Always feels good to like give something. You know?
Yeah. And I've always been a helper. I've like, you can go back, like you can go YouTube, not YouTube. What's it called right now? Anyways, a movie called Shredded, and it ended up in like all the schools and shit like that. Like, how old are you?
How old do I look?
Who knows? 20?
25.
5? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. It was called Shredded. It was all the health classes. It ended up going like crazy. So it was about male body image and steroids and all that kind of stuff in high school.
Yeah.
And so I was in that one and ended up getting like all kinds of awards and all this stuff. And even in that video, I helped everybody get into shape and with their mental struggles and all that stuff back in high school. And I've been that person my whole life. And then all of a sudden now I come to the point where I can't even help myself. So how can I help somebody else, right? That's where it got to.
Yeah.
And then, so when I finally did help myself, I'm like, okay, I don't want anybody to feel how I felt. So let me just put this out there and just see how it goes. So I put it out there, 4 people signed up, and I'm like, I don't have anything for these people, right? I know the things that I did, but I didn't build anything. So I'm like, shit. And they're all starting tomorrow because that's how I made the post, right? So I sat down that night and I'm like, okay, what was the number one thing that helped me get these deals? And I'm like, it was mindset for sure. Like mindset was the most important thing. So then I wrote down all the mindset stuff that I did, and that was day 1. And then after day 1, everyone was jacked. They're like, oh man, this is great. And then like, this was back when like, it was like a black Zoom, like no video, no presentation, no nothing. It was like a conference call. And it ended at the 40-minute mark because I wasn't paying for the premium Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So imagine it just turned off, right? And everybody had to log back in.
Yeah.
And I didn't know because I just signed up for Zoom. And I'm like, all of a sudden there's a timer. I'm like, oh, I think the thing's going to turn off. If it does, everybody log back in.
Yeah.
So they did, right? So that's how we did it. So day 1 was that. And then I'm like, okay, what was the most important thing after mindset? I'm like, oh, it was definitely door knocking and open houses where I got my deals. So day 2 is door knocking and open houses. I'm like, okay, well, where'd the rest of the deals come from? And okay, it was warm calls and cold calls. So that was day 3. I'm like, okay, well, where'd the other deals come from? And we're getting a lot of deals on social media. I'm like, okay, so day 4 was social media, right? And like every night I would write the lesson for tomorrow, if that makes sense. So I would like do the lesson. Everyone's like all super jacked. I'm like, okay, cool guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Like, what are we learning tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know yet. I'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
Right. And then so I would write it that night before I went to bed, and then we would do it in the morning. And then so we finished day 4, and then all of a sudden now it's moving to day 5. Everybody's expecting to come back. And I'm like, shit, I'm out of stuff. Like that's all the stuff I did, but everyone's coming back tomorrow. I'm like, well, my listing presentation is pretty good. I'm like, let me do the listing presentation for day 5, the last day. And then so everybody came back, and I give them the listing presentation, and they're like, okay, well, what's tomorrow? I'm like, there is no tomorrow. I go, now I know I'm out of stuff now, right? I go, that's everything. And they're like, okay, well, now what? I'm like, well, now nothing. I'm like, now go do all the things and
Go sell some houses. Yeah.
go enjoy, right? And like they were waiting for like me to pitch them on something or sell them something or sign them up. And I'm like, there is no sign up. I'm like, this is just like, I just needed to give back to people that felt how I felt. And those people, so this is November 17th. So imagine I'm killing myself in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And they don't know this, right? Like they're going through this so happy and so grateful.
Yeah.
They don't realize that they're going to be at my funeral in a month, right?
Yeah.
And those 4 people were so grateful and so thankful for changing their business and their lives that started to fill my cup. And that was the first time that I felt good since my life fell apart.
Yeah. Probably made it much harder to actually kill yourself too. Like, was that?
No, that was it. That was the shift. So then what happened is I got addicted to that. So then I made a course for it, right? So one of the guys, he made me like, it was like Google Slides or something like that. He made me, from all of his notes, he made me a presentation on day 1. And he's like, all you have to do is go add page and then like add pictures and emojis and stuff. And you can make day 2 and day 3 and day 4 and day 5. I'm like, oh shit, this is super cool. I'm like, thanks, man. Right. So I did. I sat down, I made day 3, day 2, day 3, day 45. And then I needed more people to help because I wasn't nobody at the time. Nobody knew who the fuck I was. Right. So I would go onto all of these Facebook pages, like the Broke Agent, and I can't remember what they are now, all these pages. And they would have realtors always asking questions, and I would answer the questions based on what was in my training. And all of a sudden, people were like, oh, wow, that's so smart. That's so good. That's whatever. I'm like, yeah, I cover that on day 2 of my free training, and come check it out, right? I would spend hours a day on those Facebook groups pushing people into the training, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And then I would run the training 3 times a day. So I had an Eastern time zone, a Central time zone, and a Western time zone. So from like, I can't remember now, it was like 5:36 in the morning would be my first one.
Yeah.
And I would finish at like 10:30. So that was all morning. And then I would spend time in the Facebook groups pushing people into the next group. I did that for 1.5 years, every day. I didn't miss one. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So for 18 months, I gave 3 free training sessions every day. Plus I spent all this time putting people into the groups, and I never asked anybody for anything, and I never pitched anything, and I never charged a single person. We had over 2,000 people come through that training until finally I got so busy I just couldn't. But imagine I built my business while doing all that at the same time.
Yeah. That's a lot of time
Right?
spent training people for free.
Completely.
Yeah.
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 So,
Um,
and I didn't miss 1 week ever, no matter what.
even if you went on vacation, or did you just no vacation?
Never missed. No, I would go places.
Oh, yeah.
I never missed one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But again, like that was because like that was what was making me happy, right? Knowing that I was helping these people. And it's funny, like as I was kind of getting into it, as people started knowing me a little bit better, and as I started getting a little bit more notoriety and stuff like that, people would ask me like, why don't you just record this? And then people could just buy it, or you can just give them the recording, right? And I'm like, I can't. I'm like, why can't you? Like, of course you can. I'm like, no. I'm like, because I need Friday. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I would not be alive if I didn't have Friday every week when I told these people we're done. And they were all so happy and so thankful and so grateful. I go, if it wasn't for Friday, I wouldn't be here. And I can't get Friday if I just give this away to people on a recording.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do it. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, week in, week out, week in, week out.
It's crazy.
Yeah. 18 months straight. Imagine someone doing something for free for like
For 18 months. Yeah.
18 months. That takes like a full shift, like an 8-hour shift to do the training and to fill the room for the next week and then go run a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah. It's a full-time job in itself, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So,
So I know I was talking to Callie before you were just having a phone call quickly before you jumped into this meeting, and she told me that people contact you all the time to do podcasts and things like that, right? So
yeah.
I guess, and usually I guess apparently you say no.
Yeah.
So what made you want to do this one?
Yeah. Good timing.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, man. I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for.
Sometimes like that's all it takes is to get the right opportunities. It's good timing.
It's super important. I'll give you a story on that in a second.
Yeah.
So what happened is, like I was telling you earlier, there's seasons, right?
Yeah.
So there's seasons for work and then there's seasons for attention. And what happened is this last 3 quarters, like I was telling you, right? Q2, Q3, Q4, all of our work and all of our efforts was based on systems and tools and strategies and really building the foundation of our team business so that we can start growing for agents. Now that all that stuff's built, now we're in the season of attention. Mm-hmm. So now I need more attention so we can get more agents. So you're the first person to ask actually since we entered the season of attention. And it's funny because I was going to reach out for people to do more podcasts stuff, right? So yeah, perfect timing, man.
Okay, yeah. Because I talked to like Nas, Siam, and Amon, and they were all like, yeah, reach out to Shawn. So
yeah, they're good dudes.
Yeah.
Super, super good dudes. Yeah, I love those guys.
And when you told me to go check out that podcast studio that's a couple doors down, the guy, he's also named Shawn.
Yeah.
And
he's been trying to get me on a pod.
Yeah, that's what he was telling me because I was there an hour ago or an hour before I showed up here, just scoping it out for future stuff. And he was like, "You're interviewing Shawn?" He's like, "I asked him," and he was like, "How did you do it?" And
wrong season.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know. I was just like, had a couple of friends that recommended me, but I think that's how.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Well, it's helpful for sure. Yeah, but I've had many people recommend a lot of things. Yeah, so it wasn't the right season, right? And I think a lot of people don't understand this. Is you can never lose focus. So that doesn't mean you can't change your lane and where you're in, but you need to be laser focused on that time and that thing. So if I would have done podcasts, 1, that would have taken time that I didn't have. And 2, it would have drawn attention to a system that wasn't ready. So even if I brought people in at that time, we weren't ready for them. So what was the benefit of doing the podcast? All I was going to do was waste my time and fuck my business. Mm-hmm. No good. But people want the flash, right? People just want to be notarized. People want to be out there. Same thing like with Elf Agents, the course. I had people harassing me to make it. And I'm like I'm talking like literal harassment. Like, make it, you got to do it. Why aren't you recording? I'm like, it's not the time. I'm like, this is my focus right now. I'm like, when the time comes for me to do that, let me do that. And like the reason why is like I knew I needed cash, right? Because I knew I was going to stop selling. I'm like, I can't split my focus from doing deals because I need these deals to stack my bank so that when I stop selling, that I can actually have money to bankroll this team when I need to. So let me get my cash, let me make my systems, and then let me start hiring for my team, right? You have to have plans. So, yeah, and it's funny, like I was telling you, like to relate to a story, we just hired an agent a couple of days ago. She's starting next week. And she's brand new, right? So never just getting her license. And she goes, how long until my first deal? I don't know, right? Like, what do you mean you don't know?
However long you want it to be. Is that pretty much the answer? Or?
No, absolutely not. I go, it's luck. She goes, what do you mean? I'm like, your first deal is luck. I'm like, maybe you get it today, maybe you get it tomorrow, maybe it's a month, maybe it's 3 months. I go, your year, I could tell you exactly what your year is going to look like based on consistency. But I don't know if you're going to make a post and your fucking auntie's ready to buy a house. Might be one day. I don't know if you're going to make 100 posts and nobody's going to look at your shit, or 100 calls, and all those 100 calls are going to be people that aren't ready to go. Maybe it's a week, a month, or whatever. But I know that if you do these things this many times with this repetition, this is going to be your year because the law of averages will come into play. But your first one, I go, I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. Who knows? I've got 2 people that started last week. They both did deals their first day. I mean, was that because they're super skilled? No, it's their first fucking day. They don't know what they're doing. They just happen to pick up the right phone call and do the deal. Yeah. Luck, right? So people don't understand that that's a thing, right? And like
in the short term, yeah.
In the short term.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the short term. right? It plays out over time. And like, I remember even like knocking doors with Max and Abby the first time I ever took them out to go knock doors. I said, sometimes we have a great night, sometimes we don't. I go, it doesn't matter. I go, what matters is we do the numbers. And we rely on a principle of and, not or. I'll get into that in a second. But we knocked on a door, and the very first door was a lady that's like, I'm never selling my house. I'm like, okay, that's fine, right? She's like, you're going to have to bring me out of here feet first. I'm dead when I'm leaving. I'm like, okay. Like,
have a nice day. Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Any neighbors you want to get rid of? Because you're staying here forever. So I'm like, who do you want me to get rid of? I'll go knock on their door. She laughs. Like, that's great.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
right?
I like that. Yeah.
She goes, actually, Tina down the road at 215 was talking about selling. And Lindsay over here was talking about selling.
Oh.
We pulled 5 deals off that door. And the 5th deal was her. She moved.
Yeah. She missed her friends.
Yeah, she moved, right? So, and I told them, I go, this is kind of lucky and unlucky because door knocking is not that easy. I wish we didn't knock on one door and get all these deals because now you think it's going to be like this every time. But I'm like, what a start to your guys' careers where you could pull 5 fucking deals off of one door.
Yeah.
Like this, right?
So when you go to the other doors, do you say, sorry?
Yeah, fucking she sent us.
Yeah, yeah.
She said, you need to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, she's always like that. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, but it's, yeah, sometimes you're lucky and sometimes it takes some time, right? But yeah, it balances out over the year based on your work for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a pretty relatable story. When I was 20, I started selling cars, and I started on the same day as 2 other guys. We did training for a week, and then, after a week, they were like, okay, start selling cars now.
Yeah.
And the first day, the other 2 guys that I trained with sold a car on their first day, and I didn't. It took me like 3 weeks or something. I just remember thinking, man, do I suck at this? Like, am I going to get fired?
Yeah. And?
But over the long term, like, I outlasted them. I did it for 2 years. One guy was out after 2 months. The other guy was out after like 4 or 5.
See?
And
right?
yeah.
First one's luck.
Yeah. I guess they just kind of got lucky. Maybe I just
not kind of. They clearly got lucky, right?
Yeah.
But that might have been the most unlucky thing because what happens now is that sets the precedent that, oh, this was easy.
Yeah. Right. I never really had that. I was lucky that it didn't.
That's right.
That I didn't get lucky.
100%
in that scenario.
You were fortunate you weren't lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was good stuff. You feel like a really wholesome dude.
Oh.
And
thanks, man.
Yeah. I guess for people who want to buy or sell or join your team or get involved in alpha agents or get involved with whatever you're doing in any way, like what's the best way to reach you or even like reach your team?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so 2 ways. Gettygroup.ca for buyers, sellers, and the team.
Yeah.
And then alphaagents.ca for people who want to join the downline. So like if you're in Calgary, I almost always recommend the Getty Group, right? It's just a way deeper level of training.
Yeah.
And buying and selling, obviously, would love to have you on there. And then if you live out of Calgary, then alphaagents.ca. So
awesome.
yeah, man.
Thanks so much, Shawn.
Thanks.